as we're thinking about this transition to raster data, remotely sensed data, we're really thinking about this completely different way of organizing and ordering and representing the world. So far, we have mostly focused on vector data, points, lines, and polygons. But raster data is also as widely used. I don't know if one is more used than the other, to be honest, but both raster and vector data are really important pieces of GIS practice, but they really construct and build the world in completely different ways. So we have to, kind of think about them differently, kind of work with them differently. And so we're going to move into raster mode and think about how to work with that. With raster comes remote sensing. Remote sensing imagery especially is one of those fun GIS things that is also highly essential in doing GIS work. So we'll add that on here at the end. We have an entire remote sensing class on campus. Geograph 426, 626. So you can take a whole class on it. We're going to talk about it a little bit here today. Here's the structure for our set of recordings here. And this is outlined on the Moodle page and or Echo 360 about the order and structure of these. So we're going to start with this video that you're watching right now, the fundamentals of raster data. So that's a raster right there. Pixels, that's what those squares are, arranged in a grid or rows and columns. Pixels in a grid, raster data. That's every raster. Most rasters are more interesting than this one. Each pixel has some kind of value associated with it. Different types of value. Sometimes it's integer value, sometimes it's binary, sometimes it's floating point, right? Doesn't matter. Every pixel has a value. Those pixels are arranged in a grid. Sometimes we call pixels cells. Sometimes we call the grid rows and columns. Raster data. It's a very straightforward, a very simple data format. Here's the Quabbin. Central mass. You can see when we are zoomed out, when we're looking at the full image, as we are on the left-hand side, looks like a picture, looks like a photo, a black and white photo, but still a photo. And maybe this was. When you zoom in, you see the pixels. So our lovely continuous looking image does have a limit. Eventually we get down to the pixel level. And we can see the individual pieces that our raster data are made up of. What are the values of these pixels? How do we associate the pixel itself with some underlying measurement or value? All of this depends on how the data was collected, how it's been processed, what you're doing with it. Also depends on if it's one layer, monochrome, this one black and white, or if it's multiple layers. This is remotely sensed data. A lot of the times is this. Now we're seeing in color. Now we're seeing more details on the landscape. Now we're seeing more information because we're seeing more data. So in this case, one of these pixels could actually be composed of a combination of 3 different layers. That's the other thing with raster data that's really important to engage with, is that we can combine it with other raster data. We can combine one layer with another layer really easily. No problems. We can do basic math. We can do combinations of layers. In this case, we're combining a red layer, a green layer, and a blue layer to make color. Like the halcyon days of color photography. So in this case, we have 3 different values for a hypothetical pixel in 3 different layers. Maybe we just have one different value for one pixel here in black and white. Raster data has distinct values. A surface of values, we might say. There's that same grid from earlier, but now it has values. These values might correspond to brightness. They might correspond to land cover. They might be measurements of elevation. We don't know. So it's just numbers in the grid right now. We would have to look at the data, look at the metadata to find out more. As always, when we see pixels like this, we imagine they're square, even though I'm pretty sure this 4 right here in the middle is fatter than all the rest. That's okay. We appreciate that pixel for what it is. But we're going to imagine these are always square, especially if I get that drawing tool out, then we'll definitely imagine they're square. But all raster data is a surface of values composed of pixels with values. Surface, another way of saying grid, just saying. Each pixel within raster data has its own size then. So pixel sizes are consistent. Every pixel is the same size within its grid. And those sizes then allow us to very easily calculate area. It's a lot harder to calculate area with vector. You have to basically run some kind of geometry calculation tool, unless you're really good at hand measuring, or I guess screen measuring. Pixels are easy. What's 10 times 10? No, really, what's 10 times 10? Yeah, 100. So that pixel is 100 square meters. Check. Pixels have a specific size so that we can then correspond to what they are representing on the surface. So this value of 3, let's imagine that's elevation, 3 meters of elevation. We can say they've got 100 square meters of 3 meters of elevation. This pixel size, also cell size, you can see here in the old arc view, looks about the same in the new arc view. This cell size then tells us the resolution of our data. We can resolve features to that point. So if our smallest pixel is 28.5 meters by 28.5 meters, or if it's 10 by 10, or if it's whatever it is, we can resolve features down to that size. Anything smaller than that, we can't resolve. It's too small to be a pixel, or it's too small to be represented on a pixel. So in this case, we've got 10-meter cells again. So I can see things that are 10 meters in size. So I could probably see city blocks, maybe large buildings, large areas of green space, large bodies of water. Now, I don't know, 10 by 10 meters. That's maybe a smaller body of ponds. You can see a pond. In this case, we can also do really easy representations of area, of division of surfaces. So asking again, if our cells are 10 meters by 10 meters, what's the area of a cell? What's 10 times 10? 100. 100 square meters. So Count to yourself. How many square meters do we have of blue? How many square meters do we have of purple? How many of orange? Right, we can just count them. 1, 2, 3 purple squares. A square is 100 square meters. I have 300 square meters of purple. Easy. Now, when you have 8,000 columns and 7,500 rows, maybe you want to do that counting with computational aid, but you get the idea. With raster data especially, pixel size determines everything about how clear your data is. Whereas a vector, like the example on the left, can exactly perfectly follow the river outline or the river buffer that we see there, whatever that snaky is. Raster data is going to look pixelated, basically no matter what size it is. Big pixels, big pixelated. Small pixels, small pixelated. Raster data is always going to have this kind of stair step or Minecrafty type approach. And this difference in scale then makes a difference in how and what we can see. So here's 3 different remote sensing platforms. That term again, remote sensing platforms, satellites that are taking measurements, collecting images of the landscape. And these 3 satellites do that at different scales. So they have little, kind of like we saw earlier, red, green, and blue layers or red, green, and blue sensors, which you can then combine to form images. So we've got Landsat, the thematic mapper plus. We've got Atlas and we've got QuickBird. If I remember correctly, the Landsat pixels are 30 meters, or yeah, I think 30 meters. I guess we could probably measure. There's a track in the middle that eventually becomes clear. I think it's 30 meters for Landsat, 10 meters for Atlas, and 1 meter for QuickBird, I think. Does the world look different at different pixel sizes? Can you ask and answer different questions about the planet at these different pixel sizes? Can you see and understand different things about the nature of, say, human environment interactions? I think that's what this is showing. In QuickBird, we can see the trees in the urban areas and the fields and the tennis courts and the highway overpass. And the parking lots. With Atlas, I think I see a road. Right? I definitely see that bigger road on the kind of top and lower left. I see a field. I'd guess that the grays are urban areas and the greens aren't. With ETM Plus, I can see some green space. And I can see some not green space. As our satellite platforms have improved, we can see better resolution, we can see more detail. It doesn't mean the Landsat's no good. We have Landsat records at even bigger pixels, 60-meter pixels, going back to the 1970s. Well, at that scale, we can see landscape level things, glaciers, melting glaciers. So the scale's the thing. Raster images are pixel-based, so they are resolution dependent. Great link from the University of Michigan there. Actually, it might be really helpful if you're making your, when you're making your research poster or your research presentation. or your poster presentation or your poster recording. Really good tips on how images work. As we look at things in different scales, scale changes the answers we can give and how we interpret the planet. These interpretations rely on scale as their means of understanding. And maybe rely isn't, I don't know if I like the word rely in that. Scale tells you what you can do. How about that? And so answers are reliant on scale because you can only do certain things at certain scales. So let's think about that. I'm going to stop this video. This video is just about done. I want you to hit up that link. It's also listed on our Moodle page. Got a set of features in there for you to think about. What scale is necessary to be able to accurately represent some of these things? So take a little video break, answer that. See you back here in a bit.